You're listening to Inside Content, the TV industry podcast. This show is brought to you by 3Vision, a global TV industry consultancy specialising in content acquisition, strategy, research and business development. Each episode, we give you VIP access to the views and experiences of senior TV executives and discuss the latest TV industry trends and insights.
Hello and welcome to Inside Content. I'm Jack Thomas, Director at 3Vision, and on this episode I'm joined by Andrew Zein, EVP at Warner Bros. International Television Production UK. Andrew looks after format development and sales across international markets, and so we chat about the shift in TV content trends, the challenges of adapting IP for international markets, and the importance of reducing risk for broadcasters. We also discuss the potential for new shows in 2025 and how to strategically approach existing franchises. Hi Andrew, how's it going?
All very good, Jack. Lovely to be here.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us on Inside Content. I wanted to just dive a little bit straight into one area that sort of was been a big trend for this year and was sort of approaching the end of last year was the sort of chatter about the end of peak TV, as we'd potentially see studios, Netflix, everyone else kind of dialed down the high big end premium scripted dramas, the sort of what seemed like an endless slew of them coming out for many years as a lot of apps were launching and budgets beginning to tighten as a result of that. Do you, considering what your role is, expect to see more unscripted content come out as a result of that type of tightening?
Yes, I do. I think the end of peak TV is more about the range and volume than it is about the quality. So I do think that the high-end dramas, marquee talent, marquee IP, streamers bringing to a global audience what they've never had in such volume before will continue. I think there's been a significant reduction in that sort of middle ground of television that was great TV, great stories, but perhaps didn't have a sort of clear enough remit of delivering audiences or delivering subscribers or delivering advertising that TV needs to do, because all content needs to do a job for whoever's commissioned it. And I think the middle ground of high-end dramas that people might have sort of thought epitomised peak TV have reduced. And I think that we do see a growth in unscripted commissioning, certainly an extension of hours and franchises that is in part due to a reduction in that scripted activity. Okay,
that's really interesting. So on the kind of commissioning side of things, one area on the scripted side we've seen a lot at 3Vision is these sort of more kind of bigger reliance on established IP. We've seen sort of original concepts for shows sort of getting smaller and smaller when you look up the proportion, more things based on real events, TV, other films, books, comics, podcasts, video games, all that sort of thing coming out. I'm curious if that's something you feel like is a similar phenomenon in unscripted.
Well, I think you sort of see it in two places. One is there are certainly recognisable IP moving to the unscripted space, and we've obviously, as a studio working on Harry Potter, Wizards of Baking, obvious bit of IP with a global profile and a global audience that will come to it. We've got a sort of Fast Friends game show in the unscripted space that again brings to audiences known, loved characters. It will feature clips. Even shows like Traitors have become franchises, and you've got celebrity traitors, etc. So there is that happening in unscripted, and I'm sure there's countless more examples. But then the other reason about unscripted and the opportunities is the reduction of risk. So broadcasters, and actually to be fair to producers, broadcasters are only commissioning what producers bring to them. And producers are walking through the door with known IP and known franchises, because that reduces the risk, increases the chance of success, etc., delivering broadcasters programming that does a job. And obviously formats are also at the heart of that reduced risk commissioning approach, a sort of proven idea in a proven territory with proven production techniques, mistakes made by somebody else, it's a safer option. So we see it in those two places, unscripted IP featured within the unscripted show in itself, and sort of the opportunities for format.
And so obviously at Warner, you have potential access to a huge wealth of IP. There's in terms of everything from decades of sort of content there. You mentioned Harry Potter, you mentioned Friends. There's also marquee franchises like all the DC stuff kind of sitting under you. There's some video game stuff there for your adaptations as well that come through here that could come through as well. Is there how open or how easy is it for when you're trying to get a sort of unscripted title commissioned to approach a Warner or within Warner to say we want to do something with Harry Potter in this unscripted space?
To open up the archive?
Yes.
Look, it's not easy because you only ever want to have those conversations when you feel you've got something that does justice to the original IP.
Mm-hmm.
So the first hurdle is sort of convincing our producers, convincing me that, look, we've got something that features a USP IP that Warner Brothers has. What do we think about the idea? Is it strong enough to put in front of the rights holders and also the originating talent? So it's not just, okay, do we own the right, but how will the original talent feel about it? And then the other thing is that, and this sort of ties into quite a lot of conversations we have about TV with third parties who come to us, is why would you want to do this? Will it help the brand, the franchise? If it's just about making money, very rarely does one individual project make so much money that it's sort of a game changer for a franchise. And if you get something wrong, you can screw things up and you can taint things and damage things. So there's the internal bar we have, and then there's a sort of credibility bar and an opportunity bar that would have to reach with, whether it's the film side of the business or the TV side of the business. And obviously what we've experienced to date is that it's the US studio taking the lead on these initiatives. And obviously in the US, we've got a television studio, Warner Brothers, sort of one of the most storied, headed up by Channing Dungey, who's across scripted and unscripted. So those conversations can be sort of slightly quicker and more more open, and perhaps get to a conclusion more quickly than if we sort of spent a lot of time developing the next great idea based on whatever DC character, etc. We're happy to take the lead from the stage.
Yeah. Does it feel like a sort of more recent development, the kind of tapping into the IP you have for unscripted? I think about the old days, a lot of kind of unscripted that utilize sort of some of these other franchises might be extremely tied to the title. It might be something like AMC would have Talking Dead right after Walking Dead if you want to just keep watching for a discussion sort of unscripted show. That type of title show is kind of more relegated to podcasts these days, I suppose. But when it comes to original unscripted content like Harry Potter, like with the Friends, is that something that's a bit more recent, do you think, or do you think it's always been going on in the background?
I think it probably is a bit more recent, but we're talking the last 5 years, not the last 18 months. We'd had experience, or the US studio had experience, where they did the Friends reunion show, which was a great success. They did the Harry Potter anniversary show. There was a Harry Potter quiz, Tournament of Houses. So they've worked out how to navigate their way through these waters. And we've then worked out internationally what the two opportunities are, whether it is finished tape or potentially looking to do local versions. But in some ways, like the original material, where the execution was spot on, pretty much perfect. The production values were second to none. the end result was iconic television, iconic films. In some ways, when the US makes that version, it's quite hard to better that, even in the unscripted space internationally. So when we have those conversations, it's got to be the territories that can invest similar levels of funding for the production values. There has to be a real reason why to do it. So, for example, with the Harry Potter quiz, Harry Potter Wizards of Baking, where the set and the location are so important, you'd only want to think about that somewhere else that could possibly recreate that or has that opportunity. So we filmed at Leavesden. So there's a couple of European conversations happening, but it has to be broadcasters who could commit to the production investment to come and film in the UK. We'll have the conversation in Japan because there are the sets and the studio tour there as well. So it's recognizing that both the initial IP, original unscripted IP spin-off is not opportunistic, but the bar's really high. So that applies to international versions as well.
So I guess this might be, it may not be precisely correct, and very old analogies here, I suppose, but in the way that like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with its format was always quite strict about, you'll use this set design, you'll use this music, you'll use this production value, because we want it to have parity, as opposed to something like a Deal or No Deal, which in the US was extremely glamorous. In the UK was Noel Edmonds with some cardboard boxes. Is that a kind of similar thing where there'll be guidelines in terms of those formats so there's a sort of, is it about getting parity, do you think, or just a level of quality that's sort of guaranteed?
No, it's got to sort of stand up, and there's sort of got to be parity there. But look, there are great producers and great department heads and great production companies all over the world. So you can always get to that point.
Yeah.
But it's finding a broadcast partner who wants to do that. And actually the job or the finished tape, the US finished tape, the job that does, it can only go so far, and the broadcaster feels a local version is more suitable and appropriate.
Okay. And then on that kind of topic of local versions, how, when you're dealing with something like a world where the content you're producing very likely would be a Max exclusive in all those markets where it is, if you're producing a Spanish version of Harry Potter, then is there a strange pressure to make sure the US one has a lot of space in the Spanish service first, because obviously these are two titles that could be competing with each other? Is it one that you might not necessarily show the US one, but only air the Spanish one? In a world where so much of your content's available sort of for everyone to absorb, it could be possible if you wanted, but also potentially confusing to have all the various regional versions on every version of Max around the world if people want to sort of absorb as much as possible. Is there a balance that you need?
Well, look, that's sort of, in some ways, it's jumping way ahead into lots of hypotheticals, but actually it does sort of take us into the conversation that we have on a regular basis about where you've got something you feel has international appeal and international versions. And in effect, we're talking about franchises here.
Yeah.
So The Bachelor is a good example, or Glow Up, or First Dates, or Repair Shop, where there are potential for global audiences, but equally you've got local opportunities as well. So that conversation about what comes first, or what are you focusing on, is had around every title, whether it's in the sort of pure entertainment format space or more of a fact end format as well. And they're sort of fun conversations, because it's not the Wild West, because there are strategies, but it is dependent on the particular IP and the particular timing and the particular originating territory. The economic model depends on what the finished tape of some series are worth compared to others. You then got the conversations about whether it's your production company making it or not, because the economics differ. But those issues are the issues around, okay, what comes first, finished tape or format, when you're exploiting it. are you talking to a global streamer and potentially covering the world in one deal, and then trying to put in place optionality for other local versions with that streamer, or are you going to go market by market? It's in many ways it's sort of up to the market, because we can't get anything on air ourselves. We have to persuade someone that this is the right project for them.
Yeah.
There are some times when you have lots of people keen on something, in which case you're juggling those conversations. There's sometimes when you're having conversations or a strategy of how do we get people over the line. So there's plenty of times we've used the original tape from the UK for a show. So let's take First Dates. In order to get that away in some territories as a local format, you'll have a conversation with a broadcaster and say, look, we know you like this. You're not there yet about a local version. Why don't we try and find a way of giving you comfort around your audience's understanding the show, enjoying it? Let's talk about where it might go in the schedule. Let's get them used to the slot, with a view to then making a decision X months down the line about taking a local version.
Okay. And so, I mean, it's interesting you talking about, obviously, unscripted titles, particularly reality, can be huge for linear broadcasting. Anything can get people to come and make sure to watch something at that time, because, they need to be up to date with everything so they can chat about it tomorrow. Huge, that's like on the level of sports in terms of trying to get appointment viewing. In a world where some of these types of titles, more of them are sort of coming to SVOD now and being commissioned for SVOD. For a long time, a lot of reality competition shows was seen as very much something that's for linear, that won't necessarily work on SVOD. In the same way people might have thought the similar thing about procedural dramas, for instance. Yeah. That's definitely been challenged by the sort of level of commissioning we've seen. Is there, when you are producing something for SVOD over linear, is there a difference in approach in that understanding of how people might watch it? Or is it still kind of similar about just trying to sort of produce that kind of FOMO appointment viewing that comes from it?
Look, you're trying to produce programming that is really enjoyable and people watch and want to watch the subsequent episode. I'm not aware of us altering the editorial of a program depending on whether it's on a streamer or linear. What we are acutely aware of, though, is how shows perform. And when we go and have those conversations with broadcasters where we say, look, we've got Reality Queens, which is a huge hit in multiple territories around the world. And we know this is a format that probably started sort of 12, 14 years ago in a linear age and did really well in a number of territories across Europe. Came back about 18 months, 2 years ago in the Netherlands and performed incredibly well on Videoland, the streaming platform over there. Spectacular performance, undeniably good. So we understand that that's a show that delivers a certain demographic, delivers broad numbers in that demographic, ties into certain streaming platforms. So when you then go and have a conversation in other markets, you're able to say, look, here is a great international, proven, entertaining format. Here's the job it can do on a streaming platform. Here's what it will do on linear as well. And in some places, we know it does okay to good. It's not been a sort of stellar, but you're able to say to broadcasters, look, don't worry, take a breath. The linear numbers are exactly where they should be, and this is what's going to happen on your streaming tail. And lo and behold, it does. So I think that's where the different projects and the streaming versus linear conversations are happening. It's the knowledge of this show and how it performs in a schedule and what it can do. So, for example, it's been on, and Reality Queens has been on Discovery Plus in India and also on the Discovery service. And there's also the sort of pattern of audiences of linear versus streaming pretty much the same. So it's understanding the shows and how they deliver audiences as opposed to sort of altering the shows for the platform or the audiences.
Okay, really interesting. So we were chatting a little bit before we started recording about you in the kind of post MIPCOM state of affairs at the moment. You took 20 new formats to MIPCOM this year. There's with all sorts of varieties in there. You've got culinary, physical competitions.
Yes.
How do you sort of build up that sort of breadth of genre? Are you trying to fulfill a quota of different types of genre when you go in to be as broad as possible, or is it simply just down to how good the content is? Maybe one year you have several cooking shows because they're all just brilliant.
You obviously want proven successes, so that's the first thing. You want programming that's made and on air and with a track record at least. And I will get to sort of answer your question about how strategic you are. One of the things I'm most proud of for WB ITVP is that we have successes with a range of genres. So whether it's at the sort of GOAT of all dating formats in terms of The Bachelor, the sort of big reality experience, whether it's with authentic dating like First Dates, whether it's with one of the most successful factual formats in terms of Who Do You Think You Are, or the sort of beautiful factual entertainment of The Repair Shop. These are formats that are produced in multiple territories over multiple seasons and underpin our business and our production group. So we aren't mono-genre in terms of going, right, we want Saturday evening studio entertainment shows, or we want quiz shows, or we just want returning Fact End shows. We want all of those things, and we've got a track record of working with them. And so when it comes to MIPCOM, and I looked at that press release and was like, blimey, 20 formats. And it sort of not snuck up on us with the wrong things. We obviously knew what we came in. So we had some discovery formats that had come in from Food Network, and that represented conversations that have been happening for 9 months, where we had 24 and 24, which is a fantastic format. And I think one of the standout ones from MIPCOM, or Last Bite Hotel. We'd been working with Magnolia for 6-7 months to understand their programming and the catalogue and the formats and the opportunity. We had IP coming through from our production companies in terms of new shows. So the volume of that was a result of a whole load of conversations, a whole load of commissioning, all landing at a similar period of time, because it's sort of 6-7 months since MIP, where you then go to market and sort of share what you've got. So there was no like, right, we've got to have 20 titles and we've got to have these genres. We work with the pipeline that we have and the variety of networks within the group that can supply us with IP, with our production companies. And then we look to enhance that and support that with third-party acquisitions as well. So that's how the broad mix comes about.
Okay. And then, so obviously that's looking ahead at the brand new stuff coming, as well as obviously a lot of your returning franchises like The Bachelor. I'm curious about, there's obviously, tens of thousands of hours of library you have there for a lot of these unscripted titles. Probably, I could say that potentially alone for The Bachelor. It's been going on so long. And there's, with the advent of sort of more, new ways of viewing, whether that be on SVOD or on Fast, a kind of take up in people and an opportunity to further monetize past seasons of The Bachelor going back 5-10 years. Is that an uptake you've seen a lot more or more interest than before, potentially, in the kind of library series of these types of shows?
Yes. I think we sort of predominantly fast channel opportunities still driven out of the US. So that's obviously the most mature market in that space. And we haven't seen immediate opportunities within Europe. I know there's some good examples in France, and I think there'll be more. But what we have seen is the iPlayer, the sort of on-demand platforms, the iPlayers, the Videolands, etc., that want catalogue reality box sets, as it were, sort of sitting underneath their sort of original programming. So there is more value in those franchises. It tends to be the English language versions. So the Australian versions, the UK versions, the New Zealand versions. I'm not aware yet of anywhere, and I'm sort of conscious of RuPaul's Drag Race maybe being the exception to this, where there are, and also I've not, apologies, but I've not looked at the Taskmaster channel. I don't know how much a Swedish version of Taskmaster is working for them on their Taskmaster channel, or how much a Swedish version of Bachelor would work on a fast channel in the US. I think relatively limited.
Yeah, interesting. So I guess to go slightly back again to looking ahead, there's an interesting sentence there. What titles in terms of what it might be stuff coming out of MIP, or some of the sort of more brand new titles coming, or specific regional formats? What are you sort of most looking forward to when you look ahead now?
Well, it's a combination of the new ones finding their feet and getting them away in one or two territories to sort of be the sort of proof of concept. So 24 and 24, which is the Food Network cooking show where 24 chefs, 24 hours in a kitchen, one chef eliminated every hour. Each episode sort of covers about 3 hours. We really love as a show. It's brilliant. It's adrenaline fueled. There's an authenticity to it there because of the intensity of life in a kitchen. And it naturally has the element that broadcasters like, which is it's filmed in one day. And so it's genuinely authentic, cost-effective television. I sort of had this weird moment. I was down at MIPCOM talking to a client over lunch and said, oh yeah, season 2 is filming this week, because it was filming the same week as MIPCOM. And then I had to check myself and go, oh, actually, no, season 2 is filming today, because it is as live. So sort of really, really excited about that, finding its feet. We've got Human versus Hamster, which everybody talks about. We're all trying to imagine how audiences are going to respond to it. It's fair to say that for many people, it's only the most entertaining sales tape and pitch people have seen in a long time. The fact there's 8 hours of it going to launch on Magnolia later in the month will allow people to understand how audiences come to it. But in terms of family viewing, that's got lots of potential. But equally for the new ones, such as Fast Friends and Harry Potter World of Wizards of Baking, they're sort of much more tangible and we can demonstrate to clients what they are. But whether it's Golden Bachelor or Reality Queens or Repair Shop or First Dates and various First Date spin-offs, all of these things are really alive and important to us and important to broadcasters, because what we are seeing lots of is broadcasters commissioning longer runs of things or franchise spin-offs. So something like Cash or Trash in France has 4 or 5 spin-offs. In Germany, it's similar sort of numbers. So as well as having new children in the family, we're looking after our existing children as well.
Oh, that's great. So there's a lot, clearly that kind of slightly sort of staged approach of sort of providing proof of concept and being a sort of good partner to broadcasters and helping them find a sort of good slots to schedule and test on that front of sort of working out if that's leading to multiple spin-offs then.
Oh yeah, look, if you've got you've only got to do First Dates in the UK, First Dates Hotel, First Dates Teens. Spain has had 3 or 4 different spin-offs and First Dates. There's more coming. Germany is similar as well. They really are franchises, and the spin-offs are important not just in their own right because they're great programming, but because they also help refresh the viewer's experience of the original. So First Dates, simplistically, brilliantly effective. First Dates Hotel, different grammar, different location, visually different, storytelling different. So it gives the fans a sort of change of experience, but then they'll come back and feel slightly refreshed to the original version as well.
That's
Or at
really
least that's the theory, and it sort of seems to work.
And do you find, in terms of the sort of type of content you get excited about to shop around, I'm sure you get equally excited about all of it, but do you find you're more excited to sort of bring brand new franchises into the fray that potentially have the potential to produce a bunch of spin-offs themselves, or these slightly newer things like your Harry Potter and Friends, where you can take marquee IP and attach it to something else? What tends to get you a bit more excited when you're sort of going out to the markets?
So this is going to sound like a really political answer, but I think one of the great things about working in a US studio is long running, returning is as sexy as the shiny new toy coming from a schedule somewhere else. So something like The Bachelor, the fact that it is still on multiple seasons, First Dates, similar, both 10 years plus, Bachelor, 20 seasons plus in the US. We never underestimate how hard it is to keep these shows on air, because you've got competitors walking in going, oh, look, that's been on, that's old, here's something new. So that genuinely does keep us excited. And we look at how we keep them refreshed. We're having a Bachelor exchange in January. We tend to do one every year. We do similar things for First Dates, where you bring together producers and buyers. And we do that because we're proud of the shows. We enjoy our relationships with the producers and the broadcasters. Watching them evolve is always a joy. You're like, oh, that's interesting, and even tweaks after all this time. But then being sort of from a production background to the producer background, the excitement of trying to get someone over the line and go, okay, I'll be the first one to say yes to doing an international version of Program X is also incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant, because with so much you already have that you can kind of hold to high esteem, and then you can only just add more on top of that as well. So that's it. I feel like, beyond the political answer, very, very positive one. Well, well, that's really, really exciting. I mean, is there anything else in terms of what you have upcoming that you think you'd sort of like to flag today?
Well, I think, like a lot of people, we're looking forward to 25, and 24 has been a sort of a tougher year than anyone expected. But we certainly see broadcasters' budgets opening up, an increase in original commissions. I think we'd like to see original commissions as a new IP, new ideas coming out of those markets that in the past might have done more of that. But no, I think it's a tough time, but still, this is for me, and I think for anyone in it, it's still the greatest industry there is, and the people you work with, the quality of the commissioners, the broadcasters, the streamers. Everyone's had to get a little bit better in the last 18 months. I think the sort of tightening of budgets, whilst it has caused a lot of pain, probably will result in more sustainable businesses that are better able to communicate their needs and commissioning opportunities. And hopefully in 25, everything will get back to a bit more of an equilibrium. And we've got visibility on new shows into mid 25, which is exciting, but I can't sort of talk about those now. But the conversations at the moment are all about London screenings next February, what we're going to share with clients, and we're not worried. We're going to sort of sit there with a theatre full of 300 format buyers from around the world and have nothing new to put in front of them.
No, that's all really positive. I suppose I know we're sort of slightly coming up to time here. I guess I'll end with a quite easy, well, hopefully easy question. If you've got, we talked a little bit about all the IP kind of sitting under the Warner Brothers brand. If there was one thing sort of sitting there that you sort of could, your dream IP to sort of take and turn into some sort of show, Is there something sitting there that you would love to grab off the shelf and play with?
Oh, and I hate saying this, but a good question, because too often people say good question and then use it as a chance to think, which is what I'm trying to do. But interestingly, A Clockwork Orange is the movie that sits in the studio canon that I would love to have a chance to update, adapt, and look to produce a television version of.
Very exciting.
In the unscripted space, there's a couple of exciting things happening that sort of tap into areas or films or programs that I'm passionate about. But again, I can't share those at the moment.
Okay, well, it sounds like things are moving in the exciting direction for you then. If we've already got some of those going, brilliant. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. It's been a real pleasure on Inside Content. Is there any last words you want to leave before I let you go today?
No, I think that sort of sums it up, which is we're really lucky to be here, and fingers crossed we're all doing this well into the future.
All right, brilliant. Well, thanks again to Andrew, and take care.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Inside Content, the TV industry podcast brought to you by 3Vision. With decades of TV industry experience and real-world success, we know the ins and outs of the market like nobody else. To learn more about our TV consultancy services, head to 3vision.tv.